Last spring I watched some DVDs on the Mind Life conference that happened in Dharamsala. And one of the scientists was talking about something called mirror neurons. And I am not an expert in this field, I'm just very excited right now. So mirror neurons are a special class of brain cell that fire not only when an individual performs an action, so right now I'm reaching down and grabbing this table, but also when an individual observes another person make the same movement. So I've invited my friend Venerable Tarpa to join me right now. And Venerable Tarpa is going to be praying with her mala. So if I'm understanding this correctly, the cells in Venerable Tarpa's brain that are firing, that allow her to do this movement of moving her finger to move the mala, are firing a certain portion of her brain. When I look at this, if there was some device measuring what was going on in my brain, simply by looking at her activity, the same area in my brain is also firing. So thank you, Venerable Tarpa. So I'm finding this very exciting, and I think it has all kinds of implications for us as practitioners, let alone human beings. This research began, I understand, in the 80s with a team of Italian researchers, and this has just been expanded. Many more people are picking up the research. And they've discovered that the human brain, so this was first discovered with monkeys, but now they've found that the human brain has multiple mirror neurons, these systems that specialize in carrying out not only understanding just the actions of others, but also their intentions, the social meaning of their behavior, and emotions. So this is really very exciting. So they've done some studies now where they've looked at school children, and I guess the very disturbing thing is that they watch children watch violent television shows and video games, and of course when they're watching this violence, the areas in the brain are firing, and the scientists are suggesting that this is going to increase the probability that children will behave violently. There's more research that shows that if we watch someone experience something painful, our own pain areas in our brain are activated. They've also looked at people who look at athletes. So for example, if we're looking at someone who's about to wind up and pitch a ball across a baseball plate, again, the same areas in our brain, we're just simply watching the pitcher, the same areas are firing as those in the brain of the pitcher actually doing the movement. And then one of the researchers who was doing this kind of research on the athletes was saying, if you see me choke up in emotional distress from striking out a home plate, mirror neurons in your brain simulate my distress. You automatically have empathy for me. You know how I feel because you literally feel what I'm feeling. So just with this little bit of information that I have, I'm thinking about opportunities that we have in our life just to be examples of others. 8 years ago, I had the good fortune to go to Kopan Monastery, and they invited a number of the geshes there to speak to us. And about a week into the course, one of the geshes started off by saying how thrilled he was with our progress. And of course, everyone's thinking, we've been here a week, and most of us are fairly new at Buddhism. There were some long-time practitioners. And he went on to explain that he had observed people stopping and avoiding stepping on insects. And then he said, I've also seen people stopping and saving insects from drowning in the water. And he said, more and more, I see more and more of you doing this. So by people watching others behave in a sensitive, gentle way, by not stepping on an insect or saving an insect from drowning, we're influencing each other all the time. One of the studies also said something that we all know. Children are hardwired to imitate. So they're most profoundly affected by what they see. And so if we're around children, we should be particularly careful about what we're doing, not only with our speech, but with the way we move and what we pay attention to. And I think so much change could happen just by us being very aware of what we're doing, even with our body and our movements. So now I'll give you some examples that come to mind as well about how I've been affected in a positive way. Years ago, I had to go to an exam, and there was some concern that I might have cancer. And so the radiologist had to come in and talk to me about what the next step was, which was going to be another test. And when she came in, of course, I was already freaked out, and I was very afraid. But this woman came in, and she was smiling, she was very calm, and she came up and she touched my arm and she said, "Now don't you worry about a thing, dear. This is going to be all right." So can you imagine? I mean, immediately my concern dropped. And that was fantastic feedback for my mind. And so I went through the process. Fortunately, I didn't have cancer. But those words to me that she said to me that day, and her just touching my arm, and her being calm, had a huge effect on how I went into that next test. On the flip side, I can remember from a very young age seeing all of my relatives, my parents' friends, everyone, when they got together for a social gathering, drank alcohol. Well, guess what I did once I was a teenager, because I saw that everyone that I knew, everyone I admired. I grew up Catholic, so I won't continue on that vein, but you know, there's wine happening at the Mass too. So this was a signal to me that this is how adults behave, this is how adults relax, this is how adults enjoy each other. I got the message over and over again that this was a way to socialize. So now I'll go back to a positive example of mirror neurons. When I watch my teachers, and I do this, I keep an eagle eye on my teachers. I have noticed this happen again and again, where there's a difficult situation, someone is expressing something to their teacher and the person is very upset. Sometimes it's people delivering harsh words, or the person just being really disturbed. And the one thing I've seen these teachers do is, instead of recoiling, sort of like, wow, this is really intense, which is what I'd probably still do, I notice that all of them lean in, and they get closer to the person, and they get softer, and they smile at the person. And so all of these things are just so inspiring for me, how we can affect others in a positive way. Enlightenment is a really long way off, but if we start being more and more aware of our body, speech, and mind, we can really impact others in a very positive way. I'm a beginner in this field. I'm very excited about it, and I'll just keep reading more about it. Thank you.